First, can we take a photo for all of us?
Just a minute.
So I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Mustafa, just a minute. We're live. Hi everyone. This is Dr. Victoria Nalule, and welcome to our second Aemi conference. This is the Aemi African Youth Energy Conference, where we brought different experts from different countries with different backgrounds in the energy, and also we have some experts who will be talking about the mining sector. So you're all very welcome. At Aemi, it's in full, it's the African Energy and Minerals Management Initiative. I'm the founder and executive director, but we also have representatives and directors from different countries, very enthusiastic young Africans. So in case you want any information about the African energy sector, the Aemi team will be for you. But before I proceed, I would like to invite my colleague Kenneth to make a brief introduction about our Aemi team, where some of the people on the management committee will briefly introduce themselves so that you can see for yourselves the kind of people we have at Aemi. Kenneth, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Victoria, and a very warm welcome everyone to the Aemi African Youth Energy Conference. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the Aemi team. I will give them each a chance to briefly tell us who they are and the work that they do at Aemi. So I will go first. My name is Kennedy Chege, and I'm Aemi Country Director for South Africa and also a research editor for Aemi Publications. So the other members of the team will introduce themselves in this order. Firstly, we will have Jocelyn, and she will be followed by Kofi, and then Cici. I'm not sure whether Cici is in the meeting, but she will join us. And then finally, we will have Nache. I hope I haven't left anyone else who's in attendance.
Sorry, there's Priscilla. I've also added Lloyd and Karen.
Oh, all right. So Priscilla will follow Nache, and then Lloyd, and then Karen, in that order. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin with Jocelyn. You briefly tell us who you are and your role at Aemi.
Thank you very much, Kennedy. My name is Jocelyn Omondi. I am the Director for Legal Aid and currently the Acting Assistant Executive Director. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Kofi?
Thank you very much, Kennedy. My name is Kofi, and I'm the AMI Director.
Thank you, Kofi. And then sorry?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And then we'll have Nache.
Thank you, Kennedy. My name is Inamtila Nache Kahupi. I'm from Namibia, and at Aemi, I'm responsible for editing and reviewing or assessing the work of research associate, as well as other articles and publications that we will be making.
Thank you, Nache. Priscilla.
Hi everyone, my name is Priscilla. I'm from South Africa, and my work at Aemi is being a research associate. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Karen.
Hello everyone, my name is Karen. I am from Uganda, and my work at Aemi is I'm a research associate.
Thank you, Karen. Now we'll have Chioma.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chioma Phil from Nigeria, and I'm the country representative for Aemi here in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Chioma. I believe that is the members that are present at the moment.
There is Lloyd.
So thank you.
There is Lloyd, Kenneth.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Lloyd. Yes. Can we hear from Lloyd?
Oh, maybe she has left.
Oh, it's not reflecting on my side. Okay, thank you very much to the team. I will now hand over back to you, Victoria. Thank you once again.
All right, thank you very much, Kenneth. As you can see, that's our Aemi team, but those are just some of the few representatives. There are other representatives who are not yet online, and others are a bit busy, but we are a big team, and we are trying to contribute to the African energy sector through research, like Kenneth has mentioned, and Nasha, we have various research associates. We want to contribute to the energy sector, we want to contribute to the mining sector. And at the moment, although we are trying to attract funding, at the moment we haven't yet attracted any funding. So all the people you see at Aemi, they're working for free at the moment. So you see everyone is very enthusiastic. They're just passionate about the sector and they will do anything to contribute. So without wasting any time, I would like to invite my colleague Priscilla to take us through the first session of this conference.
To kick off this session, I would like to emphasize that we are joined by a host of highly distinguished speakers for this first session, who comprise of firstly Mr. Dugald Hammaslagh, who is the principal petroleum economist at NAMCOR in Namibia, followed by Dr. Mustafa El-Shazli, who is an energy lawyer expert in Egypt, and last but not least, Ms. Mariam Kigundu, who is a senior economist at the Ministry of Finance in Uganda. I'd like to address a bit of housekeeping before we proceed by reminding our audience to ask questions in the chat box, which will be directed to all the speaker after completion of each speaker's presentation. I believe it's fitting for me to mention that in light of the conference that we are having today, that the future of Africa's energy sector relies employing on the capacity of its youth workforce in an effort to stimulate growth towards the green economy. This has become a focus area for many governments within the region and a primary feature in both regional and international development strategies, such as the African Union's Agenda 2063 and the UN's SDGs. However, we do understand that barriers to the attraction, development, and retention of youth in energy exist. I am of the opinion that today's conference will allow us to unpack discussions pertaining to African youth in energy and the various constraints and challenges related to Africa's energy sector. Without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker, Mr. Dugald, to speak more on local content and the youth.
Okay, thank you, Priscilla. I'm Dugald Hammaslagh. I am, as was mentioned, the principal petroleum economist for the national oil company in Namibia. So I primarily work in upstream, and as such, I'm now trying to share my screen, so I don't know, I'm a bit old, so I'm an old youth, let me put it that way. So I don't know whether I'm succeeding with sharing the screen. Am I sharing it, people?
Yes, you are.
Are you seeing my? Okay, so I'm hoping I'm doing it right. You seeing anything there?
Yes,
Except,
we can see. Yes, we can see the screen. We can see the slides.
Okay, so principally, I'm going to talk about local content in the energy sector. So I'm going to use myself. I am a product of local content. I was lucky to attend a school funded by the Rossing uranium mine at the time, which is now Rio Tinto in Namibia. That's now back in the 1980s. And this school was formed by a consortium of mining companies, Rossing Uranium, Namdeb, De Beers, and some other companies, with the explicit aim to offer a better schooling to disadvantaged youth. So I'm born and bred Namibian, and I managed to get a scholarship, or I was managed to get into the school funded by this consortium. So you see, back in the day, it was already part of what they considered improvement or value addition from a local content point of view. So the fact that I'm now still working in the extractive industry is it's evidence of the impact of local content on a country. Now, my background is I started as a social economist working for government as a project manager. And then in 2010, 2011, I went and specialized in energy economics. Since then, I've been heavily involved in my country's energy policy development. We are currently drafting our updating our oil and our petroleum act to be more responsive to new environments, where we're certainly looking at local content as well. Now, I view local content from I don't know what is my in these three cogs, which I call the energy sector, and it's part of what I call the triple axle of water, nutrition, and energy, because without one, it's very difficult to really get value from the other. You can't get water if you don't have an energy source to extract the water in most of the sub-Saharan African countries. You can't get nutrition if you don't have water and energy to do that. So that's the triple axle which I'm referring to. Then the other cog that we're looking at is the legislative environment. Now it's the government itself, the laws, the different regulations, specifically laws and regulations on local content. Now you need this to enable and to facilitate the sector, or to facilitate growth in the extractive industry. Specifically, I'm looking from the energy sector point of view, because even if there's no energy, even the mining suffer, because then the mines cannot become productive. Then the third cog is the youth, the community, and in general the society. So as you see, all these three cogs spin together. They spin in different directions, but they need to work together. It's like a well-oiled gearbox in you know, the new the Volkswagens, the DSGs, Tripletronic, or what. It's like a very fine-tuned automatic gearbox. If one doesn't work, if one stops, the others grind to a halt. Now, the opportunities for youth in the local content is certainly differs from country to country, from region to region. Now, Dr. Victoria, in some previous works that she's done, she's referred to the street light effect, and I have to caution our youth not to ascribe to the street light effect when it comes to the energy sector. As I've said, it's three different cogs. It's very difficult if one breaks down and the other doesn't work. Now, the street light effect, if I can, and Dr. Victoria can correct me later on if I'm wrong, it means that once the light comes on, everybody or every idea that is shown by that light is now the topical issue of the day. When I was introduced, my Ms. Brandt introduced me, and she mentioned the fact that we are having now the energy transition and the green energy, the green economy, and all of this. And I would like to play it off against indigenous sources. So I want the indigenous sources to counter the lamplight effect of these topics that are on it. Yes, we should be looking for opportunities in the green economy, but certainly that's where we are. But one has to look at your resources that's available in your country. So as the youth, you are one of the biggest resources that we have. So you need to chart your own path, but also look at how do we promote what is true to our own countries, what is good in our own countries, what is indigenous.
É só no meio, não é como. Não.
Yeah.
Por isso é que eu estou.
Okay. So you see, we want to participate already in the discussion. That's very good. So how do we access this and how do it? So as a youth, you need to pitch up. You need to take part in all the platforms that's created. When we did the energy policy in Namibia, we held multiple stakeholder engagements in the different rural settings, in the different local areas. And unfortunately, in my country, the youth did not pitch up a lot, but there were some guys that actually pitched up and promoted. I don't, we have this mainstreaming gender. We had it for many years. I don't hear it being talked about. But the idea was that, and the idea is that I got from that engagement with the youth during the energy policy development was that we need to mainstream the youth into the energy sector, into the mining sector. Whenever we as policy drivers engage, we do our research, we need to get the youth involved. In Namibia, what we've done now, the BW as NAMCO's partner in the Kudu field development, we've recently launched an essay on energy, what it means for Namibian youth in schools. So that's one of the ways. The other ways, as I've said, pitch up to these engagements, stakeholder engagements, show up and engage. As if you are a university student, write your papers on local content, how to get into it. Now, to optimize the local content is to get into it every possible way. Now, a lot of times people only refer to local content in terms of support of or secondary services to the extractive industries. Countries, and it's my personal point of view, is that we should have our industrial policies to earmarked to support the growth of local content, and we can in that force the now mainstreaming of youth into that process. Vocational training centers, that's a huge contributor of youth into the sector. Those are the type of things that one has to look at and get into it. But at the local level, one should start these discussions. What is the mining sector? What is the energy sector doing for us as youth? Is it only provision of scholarships? Is it through the corporate social responsibility? Or is it through the establishment of long-term and sustainable programs that assist the youth in gaining access to the secondary sector, but most importantly, the primary sector of services into these extractive industries. I have a pet idea. In Namibia, we have a lot of iron ore, for example. So my idea has always been, why don't we say our industrial policies, look, let's get a sovereign fund that puts money into the development of the iron sector, and we do pipelines that can service the mining industry as well as the oil and gas industry, and we can service SADC as such. That has always been my pet idea. But if that is contained in the industrial policy, and it ensures that the youth are present at every stage of that sector's development, in extraction or in the value addition, training, on the vocational training and all of that. So I sometimes get very sidetracked from what I intend to talk when I talk about local content in the youth. So just to bring it all together, in local content, we refer to the golden thread. And that just means that every piece of legislation, every enabling tool should be in place to allow that golden thread to be implemented, and youth should be mainstreamed into this golden thread. I hope some of the research papers that we will be doing under AEMI would look at this mainstreaming of youth into the local content, not only to be a secondary or tertiary industry service provider, but also on the primary service providers. Guys like myself at the present, because we are working at national oil companies, national mining companies, we form part of that primary value chain or primary part of the value chain. But we need to get into a space where we venture out of the companies, start our own mining companies, our own oil and gas companies, to be that primary part of the value chain. And if the youth, if you start very early getting involved in the discussions, it can then be taken further on that line. Okay, I think I need to stop and to give my colleagues a chance to speak as well. Are we going to take questions now or once all the presentations have been done?
Yes, we're going to take questions now because the speakers are
Okay.
going to be talking about different topics. We'll address questions for each.
Priscilla, could you put the questions at the end of the session after Mariam and Mustafa have presented?
All right, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much to Mr. Dugard for having shared his insights. We are going to move on to our next speaker, which is Dr. Mustafa, who's going to be talking to us about a generic discussion on fiscal regimes, youth in energy sector, transparency in energy, and transitioning to a low carbon economy. The floor is yours, Dr. Mustafa.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. Hello, everyone. This is Mustafa Al-Shazi speaking. Actually, I didn't have the chance to introduce myself at the beginning and opening of the session, so I'd rather prefer to introduce myself in brief. I am Mustafa Al-Shazli from Egypt. I am focusing, and my area of expertise is focusing principally on energy law and alternative dispute resolution. I used to work for the National Oil Company of Egypt, the Egyptian General Petroleum Corporation, and the Egyptian Ministry of Petroleum. And 3 or 4 years ago, I moved to Zaki Hashim and Partners law firm, which is one of the top-tier law firms in the country and focusing mainly on energy and oil and gas projects. I hold a PhD in law from Cairo University. And actually, I feel very proud to be among my brothers and colleagues who are discussing very interesting topics, actually. And this is led by our clever expert, Dr. Victoria. It's a pleasure for me to be in contact with her since a short period, but actually she did a great job to make all those experts to come together and discuss these hot topics in the energy sector. Actually, I was impressed by my colleague's presentations and his focus on local content main issues. And actually, I'd like first to answer a very interesting question regarding the conversation. We have thousands of conversation on the involvement of youth in the energy sector, but there is no sufficient structures that allow for involvement of African youth in these sectors. Actually, I agree very much with this opinion, because since a very long time, African youth and African in general are suffering from unemployment and lack of involvement in the process in the energy industries, whether oil and gas, energy renewables, and mining. and there is a trend or approach carried out by international oil companies to resort to foreign expertise in order to involve in the whole operation instead of the nationals. And this for sure will have a very negative impact on the technology transfer from foreign expertise to nationals in the relevant countries. So local content is a very important topic. And in fact, in my opinion, local content includes a string of measures aiming at increasing the procurement of domestic goods and materials and technology transfers from international oil companies to national oil companies. And this, in fact, shall have a clear strategy that shall be managed by the governments and the national oil companies in collaboration with the other stakeholders. And I mean here principally the civil society organizations and the relevant educational institutions and the government and international oil companies. So at this stage, according to statistics issued by the United Nations, you can see that Africa has the largest concentration of youth people in the world, and around 20% of African population are from youth, aged between 15 to 24. And this number is increasing, and it's estimated that Africa youth in the world is forecasted to increase to 42% of its share in the world population by 2030. So we have the potential, we have the infrastructure, we have the youth, the power, the energy to be involved in the energy industry. But what is the mechanism? This is a very important question. How can we get these tools in order to promote transfer of technology and get best of use of our resources? This is a critical question. Is it a matter of legislations? Is it a matter of having a strong legislation and petroleum contracts that includes a commitment to be carried out by international oil companies to replace nationals and employing them instead of foreign expertise? Or is it a matter of training only? Or is it a matter of transparency in the energy sector? All these factors are very important to be identified, and in order to get the best use of our natural resources. As you all know, we are witnessing a boom in Africa. We have the resources and we have youth. And you can find that a considerable number of Africans are traveling abroad in the United Kingdom and United States of America and other European countries in order to get advanced courses and advanced learning focusing on energy. And this is witnessed mainly in some countries and other universities like Dundee and Aberdeen. So the opportunities are available, but we have to spread the idea of technology transfer in order to enable our youth to participate and to get the knowledge that they might need in order to involve in the oil and gas industry. So it is not only a matter of legislations. You can have a legislation stating that you are an international oil company, you have to introduce and present a number or considerable number of training courses focusing on technicalities of oil and gas industries to the youth. And you have to enhance as a part of your social responsibility the quality of education that is presented to African youth in different African countries that you are exploiting their natural resources. So the starting point here is education. You have to set the infrastructure, I mean here universities, programs, schools, and this can be imposed to international oil companies who are working in the country. And this is actually a fair sense because you achieve a win-win situation. You are coming to exploit my natural resources, and in return, you have to invest in knowledge and my people. After a certain period of time, I would be able to create a certain caliber who would be able to manage the exploitation of my natural resources and have the knowledge in order to depend on ourselves in order to exploit our resources, whether in the oil and gas, mining, or renewable energy projects. This is about the local content. I'd rather to move to another topic regarding the circumstances that we are witnessing in the oil and gas and renewable energy industries in Africa. As you all know, the continuity of the low price of oil and gas may be disincentivizing the flow of investment in the oil and gas sector. And this actually was affected also by the crisis of COVID-19, which have a negative impact on the oil and gas industry. At this stage, I think that some countries have to deal with this situation in a clear manner and reasonable manner as well. I mean, here we can provide some incentives to investors in order to be able to proceed with investment in the oil and gas industry. It's apart from these incentives might be the fiscal regime applied by the country while exploiting its natural resources. We have three main fiscal regimes or contractual systems that might be applied by each country for petroleum exploration and exploitation. We have a concession, royalty tax, we have production sharing, we have service agreements. And each model of the said models can be adopted by each country based on its circumstances and easy or hard access to resource, political stability, the plenty of the resources, and other important factors. And the country decision.
Dr. Mustafa, sorry, we're running a bit behind schedule. So can you please summarize your points due to time constraints that we're facing? Sorry.
Yeah, okay. So I'll be very short in this issue, but what I want to say is that we are African countries. We are still suffering from some obstacles in respect of. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so we have several factors that may affect the process of investment, like in MENA region countries, we're suffering from uprisings and some internal issues, revolutions. So this for sure have a negative impact on investment in the oil and gas industry. Moreover, any investor who are seeking to invest in the country shall be aware of the regulatory framework for petroleum exploration and exploitation. And some legislations actually may be odd and do not cope with the new challenges and the new circumstances that is around the oil and gas industry. So I'll take a brief in this respect. Just want to say some snapshots regarding the oil and gas industry. We have several opportunities in African countries, and we have challenges as well. The issue is to create some sort of compromise between these challenges and the opportunities in order to reach a win-win situation between international oil companies and the host government. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for your contribution. I'd like to swiftly move on to our final speaker for the session, Ms. Mariam, to speak more on understanding the sustainability of petroleum legal and fiscal regimes. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Priscilla. I'm trying to share my presentation. Okay, just a second. Can you all see it? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, okay, cool. So hi everybody, my name is Mariam Chigundu. I'm an energy economist, but I'm also a senior economist in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. My background is in statistics and economics, and I have quite a mouthload of things I have been involved in, but I do not want to go into that right now because of the time constraints. So I'll just dive directly into the topic that I was asked to talk about. Since this is a youth conference, I really tried to go into the basics to maybe help the youth understand a little more about certain topics, and also maybe try to trigger their minds to think about places in which they need to look out into in their different countries. So that will be the outline of my presentation, and I'll dive directly into the introduction. So what are fiscal regimes? And we all know that these are sets of instruments and tools that determine how the revenues from the extractive industry, oil, gas, mining, are shared among the national oil companies or the mining companies and the governments. However, their design really depends directly on the legal framework of a country. Now, for example, in Uganda, we have the Constitution, we have the Public Finance and Management Act, we have the National Oil and Gas Policy, we have the Oil and Gas Revenue Management Policy, and a number of other laws and regulations that I won't delve into. So we have two people or two parties that are interested in this field. We have the government and we have the oil companies or the extractive companies. So what do they really need to look out for? The governments also want to increase their revenue, whereas we also want to attract more investors into the sector. So what do we have to look out for in this situation? You look at the timing of the revenues. You look at how does the government revenue change with the change in profitability? Is there some sense of flexibility? And then you look at who bears the risk. Is it purely the national oil companies? Is it government, or is it shared? So what are the types of legal and fiscal regime instruments that we have? We have just, I'll talk about just three, which are the common ones. You have the concession, which is the royalty and tax regime that is known, and that's mainly used in the mining subsector. We have the production sharing that has the three components. You have the royalties, you have the cost oil, and then the profit oil. And then we also have the service contracts. But the major ones that are usually talked about is the concession and the production sharing. And what are the tools that are in those two? You have the royalties, which is an upfront payment that governments receive before you go into the cost oil or you go into the production. You have the corporate income tax. You have bonuses that are part of the non-tax revenue. You have withholding tax. You have a number of fiscal tools, the state participation. In Uganda's sense, we have the National Oil Company that does the state participation, and we have a 15% share in those in the oil and gas sector. You have surface rental payments and the like. So this is just a snapshot to show what revenue flows would be in a production sharing contract. I mentioned earlier, it has three components. You have the royalties, which are paid before, and you can see it's highlighted there in orange. You have the cost oil, where the companies get to recuperate their costs that they invested. And then once they have recuperated their costs, then you go into the profit oil, which is usually shared. Now, in this case, if you have equity from the state equity, then the National Oil Company will take their sales and sell that, and then they'll give a share back to the treasury or the government coffers, and then they'll keep a percentage for themselves. Then the percentage that is sold by the companies, of course, government will get to tax that through profit tax, you'll get corporate income tax and the like. So this is just a snapshot. It's not really detailed. It's just a small snapshot of what a normal production sharing contract looks like. So as we have all these legal regimes and legal and fiscal regimes, there are also loopholes and pitfalls in this, where companies will try to look for areas in which they'll avoid paying tax, or they'll recuperate more money. And I just mentioned a few, but there are much more than this. So I think these are places we need to interest ourselves and look out for. Some of them is transfer pricing. So this is whereby companies will transfer taxable income from a jurisdiction with higher tax rates to a jurisdiction with lower tax rates to avoid paying the taxes. And this can be minimized through having joint ventures. In Uganda, we try to minimize this by doing the transactions are reported at arm's length. I will not go into detail because, you know, there's a mouthful that you can say on all these terms, but I think these are things that we need to interest ourselves in and try to look out for. You can also have standard output measures and prices. Another pitfall, this one I don't think is a loophole really, but I think it's more of a pitfall, is a thin capitalization, where you have a high gearing ratio. So whether you have a higher debt to, company will have a higher debt to equity ratio, and of course that will reduce on the taxable income. So meaning the government will get less from these companies. So that is a pitfall mainly, it's not really a loophole. And of course, there are other ways like trying to hide the production costs. You can exaggerate the production costs so that you pay less, or that you give less money to the to government that can be taxable. And this, you can avoid this by having audits. The government can audit the companies to make sure that they're not making any exaggerations on the costs that they've incurred in production and exploration. So when you talk about sustainability of a fiscal regime, there's so many things you need to look into. I don't think you can really pinpoint one out, but I think these are some of the few areas you want to look into, because we have two parties that are trying to benefit. The government wants more revenue, but it also wants to attract investors to come into the country and invest and give jobs, and also government gets revenue and the like. So everyone wants to benefit. And also the companies have to make profit, because they're not just going to explore, and they want to get something. So some of the areas that you can look into, stabilization clauses, we have that in Uganda in our production sharing contracts, and these protect the companies, the oil companies, in case of a change in the political climate and the like. You can also have joint and several liability. This is usually with joint ventures. So if one of the parties in the joint venture does not either pay or does not do their part in a contract, then everybody else in that joint venture is liable. So this also protects the government. You can have clauses in your contracts or in the production sharing contracts, like the cost oil, the percentage of the cost oil that is recoverable. In Uganda, the percentage is 60%. That means the companies are able to recuperate their costs faster, and then eventually then the money also comes to government. So if the costs are higher than, oh, sorry, did I lose the slide? Are you seeing the slide?
Yes, we're seeing it.
Okay, good. So I was talking about the cost oil recovery. If the costs of the company are less than the 60%, then the rest of the costs going to profit oil, which is going to be is going to be shared between the government and the oil company. If it's more than that, then they'll spread it over a period of time until the company recovers its costs that it has incurred in exploration and production. Then we need to have some bit of flexibility in our legal regimes and the fiscal regimes. You can have progressive royalties, not progressive, but sliding scale. I think sliding scale is a better term. So that in case of higher production, then you get higher royalties. In case of lower production, you get lower royalties, such you don't discourage the companies from coming into your country and investing. So, I mean, some of I think this topic is a bit too broad, but I think these are some of the areas we need to look into and think about. And I think I would encourage the youth out there to look into their country's fiscal regimes and try to look out for the loopholes and pitfalls and try to compare them with other countries and see how they can either tighten up the loopholes or see and say, yeah, well, I think our regime is really tight, that nothing can slip through there. So I think this is, I'll stop right there. I don't want to go into too much detail, but thank you, Vicky and the Aemi team for organizing this. I'm really privileged to be here.
Thank you, Ms. Miriam, for having delivered such an interesting and informative presentation. I'm going to open up the floor for questions. I have received one question in the chat box from Ms. Irene Kobusinge. She says, thank you for the presentation. I'm Irene, a mining engineer graduate from Uganda. My question is, how can we create a relationship with mining and energy companies? Because as youth, we are even failing to obtain internship placements. So what about jobs? So that's her question.
Is that to me or to all of us? Oh, I think it's to me because I'm from Uganda. Irene, even with the national oil company, with jobs, it's also a bit tricky. But with the national oil company, let me give an example. They have a website where you can go and register yourself and put your credentials on what fields you're coming from. Is it social sciences? Is it geology? Is it economics? Is it accounting? Because all these fields are relevant to the oil sector. So you have to also put yourself out there. Look out for these places in the newspapers and the ads on the websites. Go to these websites, put in your placements everywhere, and don't give up. I mean, so many youth put in one place and another, and then they're like, well, I applied to 2 places and I didn't get it. Well, it's a competitive world out there, and so many people out there getting educated. So what we need to do is be more aggressive. Go in all platforms, attend the conferences, get connections. It's quite a broad thing you have to do, but I hope that can help.
Thank you for sharing. I have a question, and due to time constraints, I think I'm going to limit the session to just one. A question regarding Mr. Dugard's presentation, where he mentioned that the drafting of various policies, we understand the underdevelopment of regulatory frameworks in Africa continues to undermine our development. And my question is, how can we accelerate the creation of robust and deepened policies for youth development within Africa's energy sector from a policy standpoint?
Yes, from a policy standpoint, I can only use the Namibian experience, where we allowed and we actively try to recruit the youth to be part of the discussions in the development of the energy policy itself. But there are various other platforms. This one, as a case in point, where one can then from this take whatever was compiled, put together a position paper and share it with the relative government agency dealing with it as a contribution to the specific policy that is at hand. In Namibia, we also have the National Youth Organization that does a lot of lobbying on behalf of the youth, and they do attend all these government functions and government planning meetings and stuff.
Thank you, sir, for sharing. I think due to time constraints, as I've mentioned previously, we are going to move on to our next session. But I see there are hands raised. I've been trying to see who it is, but I'm not able to access that. Dr. Victoria, are you able to see?
Yes, I can see we have Maggie. Maggie, would you like to ask your question? I've promoted you. And we also have Ivan. Maggie, are you there? Okay, Ivan, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, Ivan, I saw your hand was up. You had a question?
Yeah, I had a question. Basically, I'm Ivan from Uganda, a geologist. So basically, mine is based towards the youth, because I'm a youth, young. We are facing issues, especially in Uganda, where right now we haven't yet reached the production resources of our petroleum, which is the main, let me say, the main energy being exploited in our country at the moment. Yet our institutions and everywhere are producing a vast number of students, vast number of professionals, and I'm still wondering, is the government, or are they going to be able to give them or get them opportunities? Because I'm looking at a situation whereby you have over 10,000 professionals just like there. So are they just going to be in space, or so that's the dilemma we're having in Uganda at the moment. So maybe Mr. Chigundo, I'm sorry, maybe Madam Chigundo, Ms. Chigundo, can help us answer that. Okay.
I'm afraid I wasn't able to pick up exactly what Ivan was saying, but if there's anyone from the panel who got what he was saying, could you please answer his question?
Yeah, I also had a challenge hearing what he was saying. I was really struggling to hear what he was saying. Maybe could he type it in the Q&A? Maybe we could get to respond to him as we go on with the conference.
Yeah, I think that's the best alternative to exercise. Thank you, Ivan, for your question. Dr.
Priscilla,
Peter, is there another hand?
Priscilla?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I got the gist of what Ivan was asking. He was asking basically that governments in his country specifically are churning out in a large number of graduates in the energy sector. How are these graduates then going to be employed? Is government going to pay them or whatever? I think that was the gist of his question. Now, I'd like to try and answer it is that you need to do an analysis of the whole energy sector, both at the primary, secondary, tertiary level. So it's like 3 levels, 4 levels, and see where you can apply the skills that the government has spent money training you on to add value into the energy sector. I think the initiative that Dr. Victoria has launched with this organization is a case in point where we are trying to generate content, knowledge, and connections that will hopefully lead all of us into better employment positions, but also creating new types of job. I in the new energy transition that we are going forward, there in a green economy, there may be some opportunities there on a lot of stuff. As an engineer, for example, electrical engineer, you can work on smart meters and how to bring that to your country as an example. Or a simple thing, how do you cook? How do you provide food onto a rig? That's my 2 cents on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have another comment in this respect. Can I, in brief words, I'd like to add that I agree with Dougald in his opinion, and I think that we have several opportunities in the energy sectors in Africa. We have already based opportunities for youth in the oil and gas industry, and we have also transitioning to a low carbon economy. And this, for sure, will have a very positive impact to youth who might find great opportunities in the renewable energy sector. And as you all know, this sector is a little bit new in compare of the oil and gas industry, and such sector requires certain expertise in all aspects, whether economics, technical, lawyers, and in fact, the issue here is to create a calibers. African youth should match the requirements of the jobs announced by the international oil companies and other companies working in the renewable energy sector. And this actually can be achieved by training courses, conferences, postgraduate studies, and other programs that service such sectors. So this can be organized and prepared in collaboration between the government and other stakeholders throughout providing scholarships, internships, opportunities. And actually, I advise youth, African youth and other students to follow announcements published by international organizations like Untitled Chapter, like IRENA. All these organizations provides good opportunities for internships and enrollment in training programs. And as you all know, post the era after the COVID-19 witnessed a boom in webinars and other online courses that our youth can benefit from. So this shall be good. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, all our speakers. Dr. Victoria, are there any other hands raised?
No. We can invite Kofi to take us through the second session. Thank you very much, Priscilla. And thank you very much to our brilliant presenters and experts from Uganda, from Egypt, and from Namibia. Thank you very much. And Priscilla is from South Africa. Thank you very much. Kofi, would you like to take us through the second session? All right, I see Kofi is not here. Karen, were you supposed to step in for Kofi? Hello, Karen.
Hello, I wasn't aware of that.
All right, so we shall proceed with our second session. And I would like to invite Flavio to start his presentation. Could you please start by introducing yourself, and then you'll take us through your topic or presentation for this session.
Hi, my name is Flavio. I'm from Angola, and first of all, I'd like to thanks Victoria and all the members of the organization for the invitation. It's my pleasure. I've been following Victoria since we met. I believe it was in London, and she's doing an amazing job. So I'm not sure if I can share my presentation now. In the sharing, but basically I would like to talk about some of the issues that relate to with the energy transition, the African youth, and give a flavor from Angola, from an Angolan type of perspective, basically. Can you help me in sharing my PowerPoint presentation?
All right, just a minute. I thought I had made you co-host.
I don't think so.
All right, you're co-host now, because you're signed in 2 times, but you're co-host for this one. I'm sure you can share your slide now.
I don't think so. Let me try again.
Okay, just a minute.
No, I don't think I can share my my presentation.
Okay, I've made you co-host right now. Can you try again and say?
Okay, let me just. Yes, it's done now. Thank you. Okay. So can you all see my presentation?
You can see the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me just go back again and see if I can share it. Okay. Just give me a second. Technical difficulties. So basically, I apologize.
It's okay, but we can see the slides. I can see your slides. You've already shared it.
Probably it will be better.
Yeah, it's already shared. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure if I can share them.
Yeah, Okay, you try to share again, because before your slides were showing.
Okay. I don't think to go back. It doesn't allow me to go back to the first one. So if you could help me. So I'm going to offer a brief presentation on some of the topics that relate with
Yes.
with.
Jocelyn, can you access his slides from the email, and then maybe you can share for him. But in the meantime, you can start your discussion, Flavia.
Okay, so I'm going to try and be brief as well. Probably there's something wrong with my laptop. It's a gremlin in the Zoom call. So basically, my presentation is going to be quite brief, and is going to talk about some of the issues that are part of the topic, and they relate with sustainability, local content, which is a big issue, climate change, and energy transition. And I'm going to briefly speak about transparency and accountability, and I'm going to talk about Angola. I've been working in the oil and gas industry. My name is Flavio. I'm now a lecturer in law at the New University of Lisbon. I also teach in Angola at the main university called Agostinho Neto University. I teach in a module on energy transition at the postgraduate studies on oil and gas. I did my PhD in the UK. This year is going to be the 10th year of my Viva, and I did my undergraduate degree in Portugal. So I've been working in the oil and gas industry as a lawyer, but also as an academic. I also briefly founded a master's in oil and gas and law at Coventry University for 2 years, but now I'm back to my origins, to my Lusophone origins. Just to briefly talk about the topic, my topic is basically on the issues that relate with the energy transition and how they're going to affect the industry. My first point relates with an issue that we all know, and it was briefly touched by the presenter from Egypt, and relates with the fact that Africa, we have a very young population. So the average age of an African, it's 19. And I'm not sure if you all know this, but Angola is actually one of the youngest countries in Africa. I believe it's the third or the fourth youngest country in the African continent. As you all know, Angola had a long war that lasted for 40 years. The war ended 20 years ago, and we are still suffering from some of the issues that relate with the war, and a key issue is the issue of governance. But I'm going to probably talk about that more in the presentation. So these are the topics that this organization proposed to talk, and they relate with my research interests, and they relate with part of my practical work as well. So a key issue in understanding sustainability, in my view, is the issue of the energy trilemma. I know that Dr. Victoria has written about this as well, quite extensively. And for me, a key issue is the issue of energy equity. And this relates with energy poverty as well, accessibility and affordability. As we all know, only 30 to 40% of Africans have access to electricity. So a key issue is the issue of how you build public policies for energy exporting nations like my country, like Uganda, like Ghana, like Nigeria, and at the same time you balance with energy access. So for me, this is a key issue. And another issue is the issue, how do you balance that with environmental sustainability as well? As we all know, the energy transition might have a cost. Fortunately, with new technological advancements, this issue has been solved. As we all know, solar panels have decreased 10 times in the last 10 years. So we might have significant growth of renewable energy, quite, I wouldn't say quite cheap, but quite affordable. But have that in mind that we cannot look at energy just from one perspective. We need to look at the interaction of different variables, security, affordability and access, and environmental sustainability. So this means that the public policies and the laws that countries will approve will have to have a relation with the level of development of the country. In other words, we cannot have public policies from Denmark being put in place in a country like Uganda or Angola or Nigeria or the DRC or Mozambique or even countries that are a little bit more advanced like South Africa, which have more kind of energy access for the majority of its population. So another issue is the issue of local content. Local content, it's a complicated matter not just in the oil and gas industry. I could actually do a kind of a brief presentation of local content in the oil and gas industry. Hopefully I can explain a little bit more, but basically local content has two dimensions. The first dimension is what I call indigenization policies. There's actually an amazing booklet from the World Bank on local content, which basically explains what local content means, how countries can actually implement strategies. And the other dimension is the participation of local companies. And this means the participation of a national company or a national gas company for countries that obviously are rich in geological potential. But this also means a strong emphasis on small, medium enterprises. In my view, this is where the missing link is missing. As we all know, if you look at energy from the perspective of oil and gas, we're going to be a little bit blind on what energy means. In our view, energy policy needs to be holistic. Yes, we might need a separate law for the upstream oil and gas law. And most energy-rich countries have that, but we need to look at the overall strategy for energy. And this overall strategy needs to consider not just the role of the national company or the natural gas company or the national electricity company, but also at small, medium enterprises. And this is where I see a lot of potential for the youth in Africa. A key issue also, and I've been writing about this in Angola since 2015, actually also participating in the debates that are in the press, is the formalization of informal businesses. As we all know, Africa is a very large informal sector. The question is, how can you create a business environment where these businesses actually formalize and come into the formal economy? And this relates with the need for an improvement of the business environment. I'm going to give you an example. Angola is the second largest exporter of oil in Africa, after Nigeria, though Libya now is becoming quite big as well with stability in Libya. But Angola has one of the worst business environments in the world. So in the doing business of report of the World Bank, it's 177 out of 190 countries. This means that if we really want to actually give opportunities to young people, we need to improve the business environment. This is a battle I've been fighting with other people in my own country. And this means low levels of corruption, increasing infrastructure like roads, electricity, water, and a decrease of bureaucracy. So this is a key factor. Why? Because if you only focus on energy from the perspective of the extractive industries, oil and gas, we are missing another dimension. Why? It's a capital-intensive industry, basically, the oil and gas industry. It doesn't employ a lot of people. So we need to think on energy holistically, looking at the needs of African countries. Another relevant issue that we are debating in countries like Angola is the issue: how do we capture value in the energy chain, in the supply chain? And there are a few solutions for that. So an important point is also to remember that historically one of the key issues that relate with sustainability is the issue of emissions. So we need to look at the next 20 years, and next 20 years, increasingly, we are going to find a hostile environment for investments in oil and gas, particularly in oil. So, so we need to consider the key principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. So oil is going to be one of the key revenue sources for a lot of African countries. And the question is, how are we going to attract investment in a world that wants to divest from oil? This is an important...
Sorry, Flavio, could you please give us the concluding remarks with respect to your presentation?
Yes, sorry. So basically, the key issue is the issue that relates with opportunities in clean energy. I believe that solar and hydroelectric and biomass are going to be the next big thing. So we are going to need to create public policies that might increase access to the population. So basically, I'm going to give an example which relates with the case of Angola, which is a country that it's an oil net exporter of oil, but it's a country where the majority of its population doesn't even have access to electricity. So the question is, how are we going to change that? So for the youth, I see a lot of opportunities in terms of the increasing role of natural gas. A lot of opportunities and companies might emerge out of that. Opportunities also in terms of new private businesses in solar energy, in wind energy, and in the supply chain, and a new vision that relates with the creation of a new industry that doesn't exist really in my own country, which is focused on refineries and petrochemicals. That's where the future of oil and gas is. And finally, for transparency, finally, Angola is going to join the EITA. They say never, it's better late than sorry. So these are the issues I wanted just to mention, that we need to look at energy trilemma and the new opportunities that arise out of this revolution on clean energy. So in summary, energy policies need to be seen holistically, and they need to consider things like transparency, accountability, participation of local stakeholders, but also an improvement of the business environment is going to create a catalyst for new investments and new jobs. So solar energy, off-grid and on-grid, going to create thousands of jobs in the future. The new investments that are going to be done also are going to create a lot of jobs. But at the end of the day, what matters, in my view, it's the business environment. And this is where we should focus to create opportunities for the young. So thank you very much. And I'm really sorry for the late kind of representation. I expected a little bit shorter. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Flavio, and you've made very brilliant points, especially on the issue of energy access and energy poverty, because that's a challenge in many African countries, but it also presents opportunities. So in most cases, when you're looking at such challenges, it's an opportunity for the youth to ask themselves, how can I contribute to tackling this challenge in Africa? What kind of business ideas can I come up with? What kind of opportunities can I create? So whereas we're looking for jobs, but we also have to think about ourselves in a way that we're going to contribute to the energy sector. So for the youth, I'm sure you've learned a lot from Professor Flavio. Like he mentioned, I met him in London and he has been busy in the energy sector. So I'm really happy that he has been able to share his expertise with us. So without wasting any time, I remember one of the participants asked about the connection between energy, the energy sector and the mining sector. And if you're following the discussion on energy transitions, we realize that the mining sector is playing a big role, especially given the fact that critical minerals have a key role to play with respect to transitioning to a low carbon economy. So in this respect, I will not waste any time. I would like to invite our next speaker, who's Dr. Prince Ofori, and he's a structural geologist, and he's a structural geologist from Ghana. He's going to take us through some of the key issues with respect to the mining sector, because however much the conference is about the energy sector, we cannot ignore the rising role of critical minerals or even the energy sector generally. So his presentation will be focused on mining, and I would like him to first briefly introduce himself, and then he can go ahead with the presentation. Prince, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, I would want to say good afternoon to everybody. And I would want to say thank you to the organizers for getting in touch with me and asking me to have this presentation. I must say I've been in academia for 6 years now, and I've been teaching at the University of Ghana. I've been teaching structural geology, metallurgy, and economic geology. And then when it comes to the industry or the field of mining, I've been in it for—
Sorry, Prince, would you like to share your video, or you prefer not to share the video?
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, with regards to the industry, I have been in it for 10 years. I have been a miner, and I'm doing that side by side currently with teaching. So once the topic was given to me, looking at the youth and artisanal mining and the way forward, I thought it was pretty an interesting thing that it's plagued the whole of Africa, and it's something that we can talk about and make a headway as to what we have to do with it and where we can get with it. So basically, that is what my presentation is about. I'd like to share my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Good. Just a second. Yes. So like I said, the topic is the youth and artisanal mining, the way forward. And to begin with, we'll look at resource distribution, artisanal mining, the growth. I mean, this will be the content and how the presentation will go. And in order to understand things of artisanal mining, like all the other speakers did, you would have to first understand the demographies of Africa. You would realize that about 40% of the population of Africa is between 15 to 24 years old. And as you look at this, the numbers are expected to grow by 2024. And the continent, again, when you look, is very blessed with abundant natural and human resources, okay? And this resource, as you look at, can actually be a blessing or it can be a threat, looking at the youthful population and looking at what we have at hand. If you go back and look at the various distribution of resources that we have in Africa, you would realize that almost every portion of Africa is blessed with one mineral resource or the other. For example, in my country, Ghana, we are blessed with gold. And if you look at Africa, we are leading in terms of gold export in the whole of Africa. And when you look at other countries in Africa, you would realize that, look, this is a continent that has so much opportunity in terms of resource and worth. But by some, I don't know, some unique way, you would realize that youth unemployment is so high in Africa. You would realize that almost 10 to 12 million youth are unemployed. And this causes a big problem. And having looked at all these resources that we have, you would realize that the mining sector can be one of the most sectors that can employ youth. And the fact that everybody needs to feed, you would realize that the youth would want to go into what we call small scale or artisanal mining. And when I say small scale or artisanal mining, it's just involved in the use of various rudimentary techniques to extract minerals from the ground. This is very labor intensive. The work is quite hazardous, and it has so much impact on the environment negatively, okay? But with the rate of unemployment that we have in Africa, and you having 10 to 12 million youth who have to feed themselves, who also have family, you cannot stop them from going into this venture. So the thing is, what is the way forward? What do we look at to solve this issue? And when you look at the growth of this artisanal small scale mining, yes, although we are saying it has some level of negative impact, it also has some positive impact that we have to look at. So when you are looking at the issue of artisanal mining, it is better to look at it in a very holistic manner, rather than looking at it on one viewpoint, saying it is positive or saying it is negative. There's not a clear-cut definition of it, because people must feed, and in a way too, we must be able to mine in a very sustainable way so that we don't destroy our environment. And when, for instance, you check the bullion prices of gold since 2012, I mean, the prices have been increasing and increasing, okay? And these make these mineral commodities very important and something that everybody want to look at to feed their families. For example, here in Ghana, where I come from, you would realize that out of a population of about 30 million, small-scale artisanal mining is actually feeding more than 4.5 million Ghanaians. It has employed men, it has employed women, and the sad part is that children have joined the fray. It has paid youth in terms of the booking, hauling, and washing, and every aspect of the processing phase, okay? And it has been a major, major, major wealth creator in the country that I find myself in, okay? And if you actually go to these artisanal mining pits and you ask the people what they use the money for, you would realize that there are university students in there who are looking for money to pay for their fees. There are farmers who want to get some money to augment on what they do. So although we might say that, look, it has some negative impact, these are the positive impact that artisanal mining do have. And this impact goes a long way in making a country stable, because everybody can also feed. But the problem is when you come to its negative effect, okay, one, we have to compete for land because most farmlands are being turned into artisanal mining pit. There's degradation of water, there's degradation of lands. Look, it is a bit unsustainable in terms of livelihood. So when you check, it has both negative environmental and as well as social impact, as well as some positive part in terms of the employment and work creation that is given to the youth that most of our government haven't done. So we cannot say that, look, this is a bad thing. But what we can do is that, how do we make this thing, or how do we formalize this sector in terms of a way that, look, we can curb down this negative effect whilst we can still enjoy what it brings, okay? And that sends us to the way forward portion of things. So when it comes to artisanal mining, I think there are a few things that has to be done. And this has to be very government driven. And this, I think when the government do this, is going to help all of us. It's going to create wealth, as well as also save our environment from whatever it's going through. I think governments must now invest in artisanal mining by way of training the people who are in it, by way of giving them some level of education in it, and then, in fact, identifying who the key members of these sectors are, and put in good structural conditions and operations for which they do this work. So what I would say is that instead of everybody going in freely and misbehaving and doing things on their own, it would be better for governments to actually formalize these things, give licenses to these artisanal scale miners, move on again, teach them the technologies in terms of how to mine, give them the best practices in terms of education, in terms of the access of land. And the governments again must support these people, because if all of these things are done and things are done formally, you would realize that more investors are going to come into this sector. And this sector can be one of the sectors that can bridge the gap of unemployment in Africa. That is, if it is done and done well, because it gives an African solution, it gives works to the people, and the environment can be saved if we look at things in a very holistic view. So in my way, I think what can be done to help the people who are in this sector is that, look, when it comes to geologic prospecting, the government, or when it comes to geologic prospecting, I think education has to be given to these miners so that when they are looking for commodities of such, they will do it in a very environmentally friendly way than destroying the environment. Number two, finances and investments should be made available to these people. And once finances are made available to these people and you've taught them how to do things in the right way, I don't think the African is so stupid that they cannot do what they have to do right. It is because we are not having the guidance that we need. Number two, when licenses are being given, or when small-scale licenses are being given, it ought to be transparent. The licensing process ought to be very improved, okay, so that government can follow and know exactly what is happening on these lands. And in so doing, anything helps the government to get more taxes and revenue for itself, okay? And government must also improve collaboration amongst all stakeholders when it comes to artisanal mining. And effective policies must be put in place so that artisanal mining will not be much of a negative thing that we see today, but we should see it as something that is able to help the African, that is able to bridge the gap as to what is happening on the continent. And at the end of the day, it will be a win-win situation for all, so that the youth in Africa are able to enjoy the resources that they have on their land, still whilst not destroying the land, and that the government is also able to make some money out of it. So basically, this is what I had wanted to share with you, so that you all know that artisanal mining is not a bad thing, but if we look at it in a holistic way, we should be able to enjoy the wealth that we have been given in our country or various countries in Africa. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Prince. I think you need to stop sharing your slide.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Prince. So one might ask themselves, like, how is artisanal small-scale mining connected to the energy sector? Like Prince has mentioned, like the issue of ASM, it's very rampant in different African countries. And connecting it to the energy sector, you have to notice that most of the artisanal small-scale miners, they rely on rudimentary methods to mine the gold, to mine salt, or to mine other minerals they're involved in. And one of the reasons as to why they're relying on rudimentary methods is because they lack access to advanced technology. So you have to make the connection between technology and energy. Without access to electricity, how are you going to deploy advanced technology? Without access to electricity, how are these miners going to be able to work in a productive but also safe environment? So you realize that the issue of energy is very key, and it cuts across all sectors. And one of the sectors is the mining sector, and obviously artisanal small-scale mining. And I'm sure our viewers, you are aware of Goal 7 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is on energy access. And for some of us who are into energy, we argue that there is no way we can achieve all the other UN Sustainable Development Goals if majority of Africans lack access to electricity or lack access to modern energy. So Prince, I thank you for the brilliant presentation, because you've brought in a different perspective to show us how the energy sector actually cuts across in all other sectors. Without wasting any time, I'd like to invite our next speaker, Miss Doreen Kekano from Uganda, and she's also a student, a master's student at the University of Dundee. Doreen, would you like to introduce yourself and then you present for 10 minutes, please?
Thank you very much, Dr. Victoria. My name is Doreen Kekano. I'm a lawyer. I practice in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm currently a student at the University of Dundee. I'm doing an LLM in Natural Resources Law and Policy.
Your video.
My network is a bit slow. I'm afraid if I put my video, I might just go off.
Oh, that's okay.
Audible?
Yeah, you're audible. You can go ahead.
All right, thank you. Mine is to discuss the role of the youth in climate change and energy transitions. Climate change is one of the most critical global changes of our times, and recent events have demonstrated the growing vulnerability of human beings to climate change. What are the young people doing? We realize that the young people play a crucial role in combating climate change, and this has been done through various education outreaches. They have engaged with decision makers in their different communities, attended high-level meetings, through informal settings that raise awareness through advocacy activities. They participate in intergenerational and equity-based values, as well as constructive technical and policy inputs to the negotiations in their given communities. We also realize that young people are climate change activists and environmental champions in their local communities and societies. They have taken up activism through social media, which is a broadened space that reaches quite a wide range of people. That is through Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We realize that through sharing and informing the world, the message on climate change gets to reach quite a number of people. Young people have engaged their governments, and we've had quite a number of joint environmental initiatives aimed at building the capacity of youth as driving forces in the climate change, especially in Africa. We have had behavior change campaigns by young people, where we see young people driving the force to change lifestyle, to change their way of life that will reduce low carbon lifestyles. For example, you'd look at young people preferring modes of transport that are low carbon, maybe using bicycles compared to driving cars. And therefore, youth need to be given a chance to take an active part in the decision-making of local, national, and on global levels. They should be given a seat at the table. Youth education presents one of the most effective tools to combat the destructive potential of climate change and cultivate an international understanding among members of the next generation, since it's a long-term process that will impact an infinite number of future generations. Many youth organizations empower youth to take adaptation and mitigation actions and enhance effective participation of youth in climate change policy decision-making process, since the youth are the future. So when they drive these adaptation actions, then we have a new generation that is driving change to combat further climate change. Some organizations have helped the youth combat climate change. For example, the United Nations system has recognized the key role that the youth are playing in tackling climate change and work closely with youth-led and youth-focused organizations around the world. That is through the United Nations Joint Framework Initiative on Children, Youth, and Climate Change. It is designed to inspire and work with a number of youth-led organizations that are combating climate change. I'll give a few examples. There's a youth-led project in Morocco that is called the El Mauda Adaptation Initiative, whose objective is to strengthen the resilience of the local community. It fosters sustainable land and water management, resilient farming practices, and community early warning techniques. And with the work that the young people are doing in that initiative, the community is able to better deal with the current and future climate changes. The second example I would like to give is the cyclone-proof schools in Madagascar. Because Madagascar is close to the Indian Ocean and it suffers from quite a number of cyclones each year, this initiative builds schools that are affected by the cyclones. So when the cyclones hit the country, most schools and communities are destroyed, and this initiative and project by young people come up to build schools, build up the communities, and support the education sector. The third example I'd like to give is the Bamboo Bicycle Project in Ghana, which is also youth-led, whose objective is to promote a healthy, non-polluting form of alternative transport to meet growing mobility needs while addressing climate change, environmental degradation, poverty, and high unemployment among the youth. So the project basically employs young people to construct bicycles and encourage young people to use the bicycles, since it's a non-polluting form of alternative transport. There are many other initiatives and projects that the youth in various countries have developed to combat climate change. I have looked at the way forward, going forward for the youth, for the young people. One, calling upon the youth to be climate change champions and activists while using their available tools. They should not wait for, funding or investments. You can start now as a young person to be a champion for climate change by using the available resources. That is, at the moment, we can use Facebook, Twitter, and all social media available to become champions and advocate for climate change. We need to embrace the social media as a means of advocacy. We need more youth-led projects to foster climate change around the world. We need more education advocacy initiatives, since education is key to understanding the effects of climate change and combating it, and why we need to combat climate change. The youth need a more defined role to be given to them by governments. We need more youth on government bodies and ministries that affect the climate and the environment, so that we get a fresh perspective on the environment and climate change. We need governments to invest in more youth-led projects. For example, most youth-led projects are underfunded. Most of them don't have funding or investment. Therefore, most of the activities may be hindered. So in as much as they will use the available resources, there is need for governments to step in and invest in the youth-led projects so as to combat climate change on all levels. We need to...
Hello, Doreen, could you please summarize in 2 minutes so that we can get the question?
Thank you. All right. We need to target the youth who may lead engagement of younger generations in climate change discourse and inspire climate action. That is by having the youth lead most of the advocacy programs to now the younger people, to join environmental organization or groups, to participate in participate in government initiatives that tackle climate change, have school programs and community programs and projects against climate change, join simple cleanup drives in communities to pick up garbage, do recycling, and participate in tree planting and go green activities that may not require funding or investments from government. I think because of time, I can end there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Doreen, and thank you very much our previous speakers, including Flavio and also Prince from Ghana. So in this session, the second session, we've had various topics that have been discussed, but these topics are so interconnected and they're so relevant in that the youth, when you're thinking about your career in the energy sector, you don't have to limit yourself only in the energy sector. You also have to think about the mining sector. Because like Flavio mentioned in his presentation, the issue of energy access is it's an important issue. It's a challenge in different countries. But then Prince brought in the issue of artisan and small scale mining. So you see the connectivity between energy and other sectors, including the mining sector. And then in the last discussion, Doreen has come up with the issues relating to climate change. So these are all opportunities. These are all things that we need to think about, that the youth should really think about, and also don't limit yourself to one sector. Don't limit yourself to only renewables. Don't limit yourself to only fossil fuels. Don't limit yourself to only the energy sector. You can think about the mining sector and bring in that interconnectivity. And also, obviously, we cannot forget issues relating to climate change. I see we don't have any questions, and due to time, I would like to go ahead and invite my colleague, who is the head of the research associates, Nache from Namibia, and he's going to give us an update of the various research Aemi has been involved in. And after that, we shall have Jocelyn do the concluding remarks. But before Jocelyn does the concluding remarks, I'll have our speakers back and give them 2 minutes each to give us their summary what are the takeaways with respect to the topics they've discussed? What should the youth look out for? So our speakers, you can prepare yourself. After Nache has made a brief about the Aemi research, I'll get back to you to give us just a summary, 2 minutes. It will just be 2 minutes. So Nache, are you there?
Yes, Victoria, thank you. I can put my video. At Aemi, we have a lot of work and research as well, such as articles and journals that we're trying to have and collect. And this is mainly just related to having an opinion and also having a voice, comparing our work with the experts in the fields, in various fields such as mining, as well as energy. We have about 6 research associates, but our articles will come from almost all the members of the team. At the moment, we have 3 current ones that we are going to make available, and we'll publish them on the website. One is an article written on negotiating with China for African states, which is really part of a very ongoing conversation around loans that are given to African states for infrastructure purposes, and also how those deals are favoring only, not really favoring the host states by ZAC. We have another one, which is the role of courts in accelerating the energy transition. We are going to make it available as well. They are all under review, but another one is local content and its benefit for the youth. So it's also a part of the one that was mentioned earlier on local content. So we are going to make them available, and we'll just keep eyes on the website. There's not really much to talk about right now because they're a little bit a lot, but they are good research topics on African crucial conversations. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the brief summary about our Aemi research. And I would also encourage other people who are out there, if you have any topics you think are relevant in your country, you can write something brief for us and we shall be able to publish it on our website. Because however much we're doing research as Aemi, because I told you Aemi, it's a voluntary initiative. So everyone you see here, they're just enthusiastic. Obviously, we're trying to find ways to get funding, but at the end of the day, if you're passionate, you can still work and deliver without funding. So if you are interested in contributing to our research, this will also be an opportunity to put your ideas out there. Because as the youth, you shouldn't just be consuming knowledge. You should also be putting out knowledge. You should put yourself out there, put your ideas out there. So thank you very much for that. And now I'll go back to our speakers, giving each one of them 2 minutes to summarize for us the takeaways with respect to the energy sector and youth development. I'll start with, okay, let me see who I'm starting with. I will start with Flavio. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you again. It's a little bit difficult for me as a Portuguese speaker to be kind of a succinct. We speak a lot, unfortunately. So basically, my takeaway is that I'm quite interested on the relationship between mining and the energy sectors as a whole. I've been following your own research on energy access as well. And for me, this is a key issue, particularly in countries which are net exporters of oil and are very poor in terms of electricity access. But for me, the key issue is the issue of the business environment. I've been battling in my own country so the government can improve, so it can take us from the position of 177 up to at least 100, so we can attract more investment outside of oil and gas. And I see a big revolution in terms of renewables. So a lot of opportunities in Africa, and I've been working with other African countries as well, as Mozambique, as Saint Tomé and Príncipe, with Cape Verde, particularly with Lusophone countries, is the issue of this new access to very cheap solar panels. As we all know, the solar panels have decreased in cost to 10 times. So it's much cheaper now to have a solar kind of off-grid electricity network than to use imported diesel, which is becoming kind of a sin in terms of climate change. So in my view, the issue of business environment, the bet on small and medium enterprises, and the overall issue of government kind of support might help. Also, the issue of refineries. Angola is building now 3 or 4 refineries, and the issues of petrochemicals, because the future of oil, it's going to be on the petrochemical sector, not in transportation in the long term. So this is how I see things. And I'm very interested on the link between mining and energy as well. So thanks again. Unfortunately, it's a very short amount of time. Hopefully, you can create a new conference so we can do more.
Yes, definitely. We're getting various ideas for our next conference or even webinars. I'll go ahead to invite Douglas from Namibia to give his concluding remarks in 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. As my neighbor has said, it has been an honor and a privilege to be on this panel. My advice to the youth in the extractive industries, I'm talking oil and gas and mining, is to find your niche. Do your research on what of those tertiary, those third level of service provision to the industry you can get into easily. That's a kickoff. Into the guys that are more academically orientated or more paper pushers like me, obviously you need to go and do some further studies as well. But engage your local political leaders from that level to start pushing the mainstreaming of youth, of the local content agenda, and that way utilize that as a stepping stone into the sector. The third point is, as has been alluded to by Victoria and the others, is if you are already in the oil and gas sector, have been trained up on what, use the skills that you've been taught to connect the other sectors. Food and nutrition, water, mining, all are interrelated, logistics, everything that you've been taught as an energy economist, energy engineer, mining engineer, everything, they all stick together. Yeah, and watch out for NAMCOR. We are coming to a country where you are very soon. We are trying our best.
And we would very much like to work with NAMCO, so you're welcome. I hope we shall also be welcome to Namibia soon.
Always, land of sunshine.
Thank you very much. Now I'll move on to Mariam.
Thank you, Vicky, Victoria, and it's really been an honor to be part of this panel. And I really hope we can get more time to discuss and focus on particular topics that I see so many people are writing about in the chat group. But I think my biggest word of advice to the youth is to stand out. We've had a number of, we've talked about it already on this workshop, that there's so many people being churned out from universities in the energy sector, be it economics, be it lawyers, be it accountants, you name it. What makes you stand out? You need to stand out. You need to be aggressive because there's so many opportunities out there and they're looking for somebody who's aggressive. So we should not just sit back and relax and hope maybe our fathers, cousins, or friends will be able to connect us here and there. No, do something that makes you stand out and don't give up easily. Don't apply just to one place and stop there. Look out in websites, look out in the papers, read a lot, and try to make something out of yourself. It's an honor, Dr. Victoria Nalule, and hopefully we'll get to chat more and have another workshop soon.
Thank you very much, Mariam. We shall move on to Prince. Prince, are you there to make your concluding remarks? All right, I'll move on to Mustafa.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Victoria, for this brilliant session. Actually, I liked so much this event. And as I told you at the beginning, the topics are very interesting, very focused, and they need much more time to focus on all aspects of energy sector in African countries. That's why I'm inviting you to organize future similar conferences in order to be able to share more thoughts from different jurisdictions in this respect. To conclude, my advice is addressed to African governments and national oil companies. They must be cautious about the exploitation of natural resources and the exploitation of skills as well. We have potential from natural resources, and we have youth as well. And to exploit the capacity of these youth, we have to introduce them sufficient training programs in terms of educational programs focusing on energy and internships in international oil companies who are operating in our countries, and creating some sort of collaboration between our governments and other international organizations in order to increase the capacity of our people and deploying the ideas of technology transfer in the oil and gas industry and renewable energy industry. My advice also is addressed to youth who shall be cautious, as my colleague Mariam mentions. They have to capture the opportunity. As you see, and we are witnessing a boom in the number of African students who are continuing their postgraduate studies in energy-related topics in different European and American universities. And I think those expertise will have a very important role in the management of their natural resources in their countries when they came back. And we are seeing models in this respect, like Victoria, who was a very good model for African lady who studied abroad and came back and achieved a very great progress in this respect. And I'd like also to focus on energy transition. And as according to a report, actually, I have read yesterday, a report issued by PwC. According to this report, I found that there would be, it is estimated that there would be new opportunities in the renewable energy sector, and this will pave the way to create new opportunities in the renewable energy industry. I'd like to thank you again for this event and looking forward to contribute in more events in the near future. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for that. You will notice that I've promoted all our participants. I would invite you to put your videos on. I know, Mustafa, you wanted to take a photo so that we can have a photo for our website, but also our social media. Doreen, would you like to make your concluding remarks? And then Jocelyn will come in to give us the concluding remarks because she's the Assistant Executive Director and she has been doing a very, very great job. So Jocelyn will do the concluding remarks and then she'll also take a photo. And I think we should all be able to take photos. So Doreen, do you want to give us your takeaway?
Thank you very much, Dr. Victoria. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for this opportunity and thank the Aemi team for a job well done. I was privileged and honored to be a speaker. My takeaway is organizations should engage the youth more because the youth are change drivers due to spreading new habits and the use of technology that we should take advantage of as we combat climate change. Because a fight for climate change is a fight for humanity and our world that we live in. So I urge each and every one of us to do our part by using the available resources, by doing the basics, that is garbage collection, recycling, and just the basics. I think that's it from me. Thank you very much. And I look forward to participating more in your webinars and conferences. It was such an honor.
Thank you very much, Doreen. Guys, put your videos on. Jocelyn, I would invite you to officially give us the concluding remarks on behalf of Aemi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Victoria, and to all our speakers for taking your time to talk to the African youth on the energy sector and their upcoming and current opportunities, which are there for everyone to go and grab. So we also would like to thank the Aemi team, the organizers, for this energy conference. We do thank you so much for the good work which you did, and also for Dr. Victoria for pushing for such wonderful conferences, such webinars. And I'd just like to, I know everything has been said and all opportunities have been tabled for the youth, or for you to go out and get your opportunities. But I'd just like to encourage the youth. If you think that you don't know where to start from and you're interested in being in the energy sector, reach out to somebody, reach out to the Aemi team, reach out to the speakers, get involved in the mentorship program, which Aemi has a mentorship program. If you want to be a mentee, you can also reach out to us so that we're in a position to help you reach wherever you want to be in the energy sector. And just to thank you for this opportunity. And I do not know how to take everybody's photo, but I will try.
I don't know. Been taking. I'm sure people have been taking, because I've also been taking.
Okay.
Yes, so as we're taking photos, I think we can just say hello to everyone. I see we have many people, and I wouldn't like you to leave without networking. Since we can't meet physically, why not say hello? So Jocelyn, do you want to moderate that session where you give our participants just a chance to say hi? Maybe I'm Victoria, I'm from here. Just a few words, yes.
Okay, no problem. Probably someone can raise up their hand, then we can promote them. Dr. Victoria, I think probably you can.
They're all promoted.
Okay.
Or they can feel free to start, because
yes,
moderate since they're all promoted, but we can be a little bit disciplined. So anyone who's ready, so just say hello. I'll start with Karen.
Okay, we can start with Maggie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the privilege to be part of this training. I personally found it very enlightening, especially the issues that we find, such as energy access versus energy economics and exporting. Particularly, I didn't know about energy economics. It's now a line I'm actually hoping to pursue. But all in all, thank you so much for the privilege. I look forward to being part of the Aemi mentorship program, because I could really use more of this. Thank you.
All right, anyone else who's ready? I see David, you must be ready. Okay.
Hello. Hi, Victoria. Thank you.
Hi, you. Guys, we just have 5 minutes for this. So unless if you're feeling shy, we might as well.
Hello, my name is Elliot. I'm from Burundi. Thank you so much for all speakers and to the MI team. And also keen to join this session. We learn more, and I hope to learn more and more. And if possible, let's share the material, for then we can go on with the research. Thank you.
All right, guys, I think you're being shy. I see Sunday. I also see Hope. I see Abigail, Elliot. Don't raise your hand. Just be free. Feel free to say hello and introduce yourself. We just have like 3 minutes for this.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes. All right. So, thank you for being shy. This will be the end of our webinar. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube channel, and Jocelyn will send you a presentation. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.